what's great about it is that you don't have to become happy by having stuff. We think stuff is going to make us happy, but it doesn't. What makes us happy is our attitude, our appreciation. Attitude and gratitude, really, is what it comes down to. If you see your life as good, it is good. And if you see everything you don't have that you want, then your life isn't good.
Welcome to Wildly Unplug, sharing stories of nature, conservation, and creativity. Discover what develops when you unplug and step outdoors. Michelle, thank you so much for being here today.
I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome. So you've written a couple books, but what did your path in your career look like before you started doing that? Or has that always been your aspiration?
I guess it's always been my aspiration in that as a little kid, I thought it would be great to be an author and all that sort of thing. Things didn't go quite as I imagined. I thought being an author meant writing novels. Turns out I'm really bad at that. But I'm really good at writing nonfiction. So that's what I've been doing. And on top of that, I've had a career in TV production and corporate communications. And for the last decade or so, I've been self-employed as a writer and editor.
That's awesome. I love that you said it wasn't quite how you looked, how you thought it would look like.
Is it ever?
I know. As an adult, I'm like, I'm happy where I'm at, but this isn't the path that I envisioned and how to get there. So how did you discover that writing nonfiction was really your thing?
So I did try to write a novel, but I wrote a novel sort of based on my travel diaries, thinking I'll just use this as the background information and then I'll write a plot around this. And it didn't work out. I finished it and it was fine. And I sent some queries off to agents. In retrospect, it wasn't a particularly good novel. And then when I was living in New Zealand, I lived there for 7 years. And I had just gotten together with the boyfriend who is now my husband. And he was into hiking and camping and all that sort of thing. And I was into hiking and stuff. And so we went on our first little camping trip together. And when I got back from it, I had this thought in my head, like somebody should write a book about how to have sex in a tent. I think there's a book somewhere in that. And it took a little while to sink in, but I went, wait, maybe I should write that book. And I ended up, that was my first nonfiction book. It was actually called Sex in a Tent. And it's all about going camping with your significant other.
That's so interesting. So how did that book take off?
So I had to give it some thought because obviously it had to be about a little more than just how the sex part in order to make a whole book out of it. But, I put together a plan and I put together an outline and I contacted some agents and one was interested and said, yeah, I think there are some smaller publishers who might be into this. Hooked me up with a small publisher called Wilderness Press in California. And yeah, it was a great experience. They were really supportive. And that was released in 2007 and it's still in print, still available for sale.
Oh, that's wonderful. And then you just wrote another book recently, Be as Happy as Your Dog.
Yep.
What inspired you to write that one?
Obviously, my dogs. We have two dogs. They're both from a rescue. And one in particular, her name is Nuka. And she has dealt with, you name it, anything that life can throw at a dog. So she was abandoned. So she was living on the streets. She was rescued out of a dumpster, underfed, probably abused. And then within a few months of having her, we discovered she had a parasite that she probably got while she was stray. She had to have one of her kidneys removed. And then not too long after that, she was about 2 years old, her knees started giving out, so she needed knee surgeries. And then she had some sort of weird autoimmune problem, and then on and on. Anything that could happen to this poor dog happened. But she was always happy anyway. She was, give or take a couple of days of being very sore after surgeries and stuff. She loves life. And I thought, if we could all be made happy as easily as dogs are, how much better would our lives be?
Yeah. Not to anthropomorphize dogs, but Seriously, like you look at them, I have three of my own. They always seem happy and they always seem to be like in the present moment,
Mm,
enjoying what's around them, especially when life is good and they're rolling around outside. And, that gosh, if we get the leashes out, it's just like the best day ever. They're like, oh, we're
yeah,
going for a walk.
yeah.
First of all, I have to ask on the cover of the book, is that your dog?
That is not. I actually had a photo contest to get the cover dog.
How did you decide
So,
that?
so this is here, I can a little closer. This
Oh,
guy's name on the cover is Meatball. He's a miniature bull terrier. So we just had people enter like photos of their dogs, and we had an opportunity for people to vote on them. And then the dogs that got the top 10 that got the most votes, me and the cover designer, we teamed up and went through the top 10 and decided which one would be best on the cover.
that sounds like a fun and incredibly difficult contest.
I ended up putting more of the finalists on the back cover because
How could you not?
and there's also some on the inside of the book because I wanted to use as many of these dogs as possible. They were so beautiful.
It's sweet of you. So, what are some lessons that we can learn from dogs, and how can we start to be more like them?
So I did two streams of research for this book. One was obviously about dog behavior and why they do the things they do and why they seem so happy all the time. And then the other string of research was an area called positive psychology, and that's about humans and how we can live our best lives, basically, how we can thrive no matter what our circumstances. And I looked for how these things connected. What do dogs do? What can we learn from them? And how can we apply that to our own lives? So, dogs, like you said, are always in the moment. They're always enjoying what's happening around them. They're not worried about, oh, what am I going to get for dinner? Or when's my next vet appointment? They're not thinking about that stuff. They're thinking about what smells interesting in front of them. Yay, I get to go for a walk. Yay, I get to eat. And they celebrate every time something good happens. Like you've seen your dog every time you get the leash out, they're excited. Whereas we start taking these things for granted. Okay, I'm going out for dinner again, whatever. Maybe we shouldn't take these things for granted. Every time something good is happening, we should recognize it, enjoy it, appreciate it. And then we get that much more joy out of it. Suddenly our life seems to be going a lot better because we actually take a moment to notice all the good stuff.
Yeah, it's like a lesson in gratitude. Like the more
Mm.
you focus on something, the more it grows. And oh man, like for lunch, we went to Jimmy John's. I should have been like, yes, I get to eat Jimmy John's and have my favorite sandwich. And yeah, start celebrating all these. We have so much to celebrate every day.
Yeah. One of the things I learned through the positive psychology research is that our brains have a negativity bias. We pay more attention when things are going wrong. And that was a survival thing. We used to have to pay attention to whether we were under attack or whether there was enough food or all that sort of thing. And so if something's going wrong, it's more important than if something's going right. So they estimate that you need to have 9 times as many positive thoughts as negative ones just to cancel out that bias.
Wow.
So if you think, oh, I'm always obsessed about everything that's wrong in my life, that's totally normal and human. We have to work at countering that.
That's so interesting because that was such a long time ago. I didn't grow up having to worry about, oh, I need to protect my cave or whatever.
Mhm.
That was such a long time ago. And that's still that lizard part of our brain or monkey brain still focuses on that negative. And we have to work
Exactly.
hard to counter that. That is so interesting. Did you come across any surprises as you were writing the book or anything that you never had thought of before?
Lots of them. One of my favorite little tiny things in the book is I talk about serendipity, which is fun to say, but it's also great. People think, oh, serendipity, that's when something good happens by accident, right? It's like a lucky accident. But if you go back and look at where that word comes from, it actually, somebody came up with it because he liked this story about the three princes of Serendip, which is what they used to call Sri Lanka hundreds of years ago. And he came up with this word serendipity that means it's when something happens that's better than what you were expecting because of good fortune and awareness and sensitivity. So it's not just luck, because you can be lucky, something can cross right in front of you, and you're so focused on what you thought was supposed to happen, you miss it. You don't take advantage of it. You miss this great, wonderful thing that was better than the thing you were looking for. So having that open-mindedness, being ready to change your plans when something better comes along, gives you all these great opportunities to be happier because something you haven't even thought of that's amazing is right in front of you.
That's really good to think about it in that way. How many times do we get stuck in traffic and we're like, oh man, this is awful? Or just last week we were kayaking and my husband dropped his mask and he didn't realize he dropped his mask in the water. And we had to go back and this guy's kayak had started blowing away. He was out swimming and we brought his kayak back to him. We're like, thank goodness that you dropped your mask because then
Yeah.
it this guy out. So like twisting it to from that negative to, oh, how serendipitous. We
Yeah.
have this person out now.
If you think about times in your life where you had this big plan you were following and the plan didn't work out for some reason, something went terribly wrong and you were all upset about it, but then something else came along because that plan didn't work and it was better. People like to say, when one door closes, another opens, or however you like to word it. But I think if you keep your mind open and if you don't obsess over the fact that something's not going to plan, then there can be real opportunities. I had a plan. I was going to write novels. That was my plan. Didn't work out very well, but I saw an opportunity and I said, oh, let's try this instead, see how it goes. And it went much better. So I think you have to be ready to embrace what's in front of you instead of keeping on fighting for that thing that you thought you were supposed to want.
Have you found that in writing nonfiction, that when people come up to you after writing a book, that you're able to connect with them more? I don't know. Oh gosh, I don't know. Talking about having sex in a tent or or
Yeah.
how their lives have changed because they're now thinking like a dog instead.
Yeah. And one of the other books I wrote in between those two, when I was living in New Zealand, there was an American publisher doing a series of guidebooks for people who wanted to live abroad. And I wrote a book called Living Abroad in New Zealand. And people would contact me afterwards and say, hey, I read your book before I moved to New Zealand. It was so helpful. It answered so many of the questions I had, and it made everything so much easier. And just hearing those responses was just so great for me to go, okay, I actually wrote something that helped somebody. And there's no better feeling for a nonfiction author to have somebody say, your book really had this immediate direct impact on my life is great.
Reminds me of the quote, I forget who says it now, but your story could be like a survival guide for somebody else that needs it. So
Yeah.
do you have any tips for somebody that wants to live abroad? How do they start?
Oh, wow. It depends where, but I think you have to, first of all, be a sort of person who can go with the flow. Things are not going to be like they were at home. People are going to be different. Jobs are going to be different. Houses are going to be different. And you have to be able to adapt and embrace your new reality. You have to be, again, ready to change your plans, ready to go a different direction. Maybe you can't find a job doing what you used to do. Maybe you have to try doing something else for a while until you get settled in. So I think it's all about adaptability. It's all about looking for opportunities. And to successfully live in another country, you have to be willing to put yourself out there, meet new people. I think once you're out of school, it's really hard to make new friendships.
Yes.
People get very solidified into their friendships, and it becomes much more difficult to just meet a new person and go, hey, let's hang out.
Yeah.
So that's a real challenge for living abroad, I found.
We just moved to the house that we're in now, and it was just 20 minutes down the road, but it was still difficult meeting new neighbors and things like that. I can't imagine moving across the entire ocean. Uh,
Yeah.
Something that helped us, we joined the local chamber because we're entrepreneurs and you can't go to an office every day and at least have some of those familiar faces. So the chamber really helped. Is there anything like that you joined?
Yeah. When I moved to New Zealand, I joined what they call a tramping club. That's what they call hiking there.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, that's what I did. I joined the tramping club, and they organize group hikes and camping trips and things. So suddenly you have this group of people around you who are interested in the same stuff you are, and you have somebody to do things with, so you're not sitting at home feeling lonely, wondering why you moved. So that was really helpful. And I talk about that a bit in Be As Happy As Your Dog as well. Like social interaction is so important for humans, just like it is for dogs. I have a chapter called Find Your Pack, because dogs are social animals. They don't do well on their own, and neither do we. There's been a lot of research on isolation, and there was a lot of new research done on isolation during the pandemic because so many people were not interacting with other people, and it took a toll on their mental health. So anytime you find you're isolated, you don't have anyone around, it's always good to join a club, take a class in something you're interested in, have random conversations with strangers. That there's people I like to call familiar strangers, like the people you pass while you're walking your dogs, right? You probably see the same ones over and over again, and you say hi. So, maybe one day say more than hi, have a little conversation, because all of those interactions help boost your mood and make you feel more social.
Those are all great tips. I find that I'm still trying to readjust after the craziness that was 2020, just because our family was very isolated because my husband and son have asthma. So we stayed away from everyone for a long time. So it's been still hard getting back into the groove. Do you find that having a dog helps you interact with people?
Absolutely. Yeah. Dogs are a great social lubricant. If you have a dog and somebody else has a dog, you automatically have something to talk about.
Yeah.
You compare notes. Oh, how old's your dog? Oh, breed. And do you do any activities with them? And do you take them in your kayak with you? Or it's an automatic conversation starter, which is great. Dogs are very handy that way.
Yes, absolutely. Did you find any negative things when you're doing your research?
I think what's negative is the lifestyle we've been imposing on the dogs more and more these days, which is that they're home alone a lot of the time, which they don't like. A lot of dogs are not getting enough exercise, enough fresh air. We're treating them more like little humans and forgetting to let them be dogs. We're expecting them to never bark. We're expecting them to not get excited. We're expecting them to be our therapists. That's a lot of pressure to put on a dog.
Yeah.
So I think that's the negative stuff that's going on. And I think the more we learn about dogs and how they work and how they understand things around them, the more we realize what they need and how we can support them and make them have the best life they can have.
Yeah. We spend a lot of time in our local town, and they have a lot of spots, a lot of restaurants where you're allowed to bring your dog outside. And that is the best thing, I think, because our dogs love going out. They love seeing new people. They get little morsels of whatever we're eating, even though
Yeah,
my vet says that's bad. But I think that's a great. Have you heard of bringfido.com?
I have not.
So that's a website where it tells you like restaurants and hotels and different places where you can bring your dog with you, because I think
Yeah.
that's the best thing to help get them out of the house a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. Dogs just want to be with you. You are their pack. You're their family. So anytime you can spend more time with them, they're going to be happier. And if you can't spend time with them, then making the arrangements that they're spending time with someone. Maybe it's doggy daycare, maybe it's a walker, maybe it's just somebody who comes around your house for half an hour, to hang out with them. But yeah, I think there's a real, people are complaining more and more about their dogs having anxiety and reactivity and all that sort of thing. If you look at how they live their lives, you can see why. They don't get to they don't get to do dog things enough.
I think the best thing about dogs is I'm in my office right now, and in 20 minutes when I come out, they're gonna give me the biggest. George, my lab mix, gives me a smile. Like you can see it in his lips. It looks like a smile, and they wag their tail and everything. That is just the best feeling
Yeah.
in the world, I think. Do you have any other books planned?
Not immediately. I did, after I released Be As Happy as Your Dog, I put together a workbook for it. So that's out there too. And I just a couple of months ago released the audiobook version. So that kept me busy for a while.
Oh, did you do
Um,
the actual recording?
I did everything,
Oh, wow.
which I don't recommend. It was a lot of work, but yeah, so I recorded it myself. I did the production on it and all of that sort of thing. So it was a huge project. It was a very satisfying project. I'm very proud of myself, but it was a lot to take on. And I could only do that really because I have a background in TV production. And so editing 5.5 hours of audiobook was something I was capable of. Not everybody would be so happy to do that.
Yeah, I bet that was a lot of work. When I do the intro for my podcast, it takes me quite a few tries, and doing a loud clap, and I have to go back and edit where that loud spike is, and
Yeah,
it's quite a production. So congratulations.
thank you.
That's awesome. And then
Yeah.
for the workbook, what can people expect with the workbook?
So the workbook basically follows the structure of the book. So the book has the book's subtitle, it's Be As Happy as Your Dog, 16 dog-tested ways to be happier using positive psychology. And so there are 16 chapters about things dogs do and how people can take them on to their human version of it and be happier. So the workbook goes through each of those 16 things and draws from the suggestions in the book and gives you little exercises to go through so that you can make these things work in your life, because we don't all have the same life and we don't have all the same interests and things. So it's about making it work for you, whatever your circumstances are.
That's really cool. I wish more books had a workbook with it, because then you can like really put it into practice. I feel like it's gonna, for me at least, I know it would sink in more if I'm
Yeah.
actively working it out.
And it's a problem with self-help books, right? You read it and you go, yeah, that's a great idea. And you get to the end of it and you put it back on your shelf and nothing changes in your life.
Yeah, you don't implement it in any way and
Yeah.
you forget about it. Yeah,
So
that's
the workbook is really helpful for saying, okay, here's what I'm going to do.
very cool. Nice. So you talked about New Zealand a little bit. What is your favorite place in both places that you're living right now?
So right now I live in Toronto, Canada, which is a big city. And the wonderful thing about New Zealand is that you're never all that far from nature. And I miss that terribly. We could go from our home to, we'd drive 45 minutes or an hour and we'd be in mountains. There was coastline everywhere, right? New Zealand's just long, skinny islands. So you're never far from the coast. So that aspect of living in New Zealand is amazing. If you're a nature lover, it's just perfect. What I like about being back in Toronto, which is where I grew up, is of course my really close friends and family are here. So that human part is what I missed when I was in New Zealand. And as I said before, as a grown-up, it gets harder and harder to make really good friendships. I made friends there and it was great, but you never replace those people you grew up with.
Do you have a favorite moment in nature? Something that when you close your eyes and you think about happy times out in nature, it's
Mm,
some sort of awe-inspiring moment.
wow, so many. Getting to the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro is certainly up there.
Wow.
Yeah, that and It was unpleasant, but it was very satisfying to accomplish. I felt terrible because of the altitude and stuff. But then my husband and I got engaged up there. So that
Oh,
was pretty special. But yeah, anytime that I can look out over the glacier-fed lake and it's that milky blue color that just doesn't seem like it should be allowed.
yeah.
I love that. That just takes me to a place that I love to be.
Very cool. Now, do you have any long-term goals that you hope to accomplish with your books?
I just want to feel like I'm having a positive impact on the world. And I've taken very different approaches to that in my different books. There was the guide to moving to New Zealand, and there was the guide to going camping with your significant other and getting along out there. And there's this book on how to be happier every day. I decided not to have children. And I think the part of you that goes, okay, what am I leaving in the world? How am I leaving the world a better place than I found it? For a lot of people, that's okay. My kids are going to carry out my legacy. This is what I've left them to the world. If you decide not to have children, there's this question you ask yourself, what difference will it have made that I was here? And so I'm trying to make not a huge, breathtaking Nobel Prize winning difference, but my own little difference in people's lives.
Have you thought about doing like a retreat or a workshop with the books that you're doing?
You know what? I was going to do some workshops for Be As Happy As Your Dog. It hasn't come together yet, but it's still in the back of my mind as something I want to do. Just little happiness boosting workshops. Here's how you can be a little happier every day of your life. And it really doesn't matter how much stuff you do have, you just see the stuff you don't have. So I think it's great to share that positive psychology message to say, hey, your life is enough. If you want to go after bigger things, go for it, but don't tie your happiness to it. Be happy before you get there.
You certainly have a great and positive message, and I love all that. I want people to be able to find you. How can they get in touch and follow along on your journey and find your
Sure.
books?
The books are on all the online bookstores. You can go to beashappyasyourdog.com, and that has all the places where the book is for sale, the workbook, links for the audiobook. And you can also sign up. I have a monthly newsletter called Dogs and Happiness with lots of great tips in there. You can sign up for that or find me on Facebook or Instagram as Be As Happy As Your Dog.
Perfect. And I will link all that in the show notes so people can click right on over and find you. What is one tip that you have for someone that would like to connect with nature?
Make the time. We're all so busy and we're all so caught up in our lives that we don't prioritize nature. And nature is great for healing. It's great for our mental state. It is great for our happiness. It's also good for our dogs. So I think you just have to prioritize it, make it important in your life. And then it's not something you fit in when you have this imaginary spare time that never comes around.
That is great advice. Thank you so much for being here today, Michelle.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to talk to you.
And until next time, get outside and see what develops.
Wildly Unplugged podcast is a production of Wild Development Studio. The views, opinions, and statements expressed by individuals during Wild Development Studio's productions do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of Wild Development Studio or its affiliates. Participation in any activities, expeditions, or adventures discussed or promoted during our content may involve inherent risks. It is strongly advised that individuals conduct thorough research, seek professional guidance, and take all necessary precautions before engaging in such activities or venturing into wilderness areas. Wild Development Studio its representatives, or employees shall not be held responsible for any injury, loss, damage, accident, or unforeseen incident that may occur as a result of participating in activities inspired by or discussed in our content. By choosing to engage with our content or act upon any information provided, individuals do so at their own risk and discretion.